ANM, American Northwest Magazine. Please subscribe. Why are we killing people in Iran? And that includes little girls. And what is our economic, financial outlook over the next month and even throughout the year? Let's go ahead and watch this clip. This is Andre Ajik. We'll try and get these links to these videos in the description.
So about 2 months ago, I made a video saying that Iran would be next after Venezuela. And I wish I was wrong, but on February 27th, Iran agreed to nuclear inspections. And then 1 day later, the United States bombed them.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives.
That means the U.S. is now at war with a country of 92 million people. And that's what's happening right now. The question that I think we're all trying to understand is why? Because the official explanation doesn't make any sense. The official explanation is, this was not a regime change war, but their regime is gone. And that the nuclear program was the threat, but
the regime isn't actually gone. We'd have killed the leader of the regime, and now it looks like his son is going to take over, who's even more hardline than the previous leader, his father. And at this point, we don't have anyone to place into power, like a regime change would be. Right now, the same regime is there. How we're going to deal with that, who knows? Trump is asking the people to do it, but we'll see how that goes.
We already destroyed it 8 months ago with Operation Midnight Hammer. That Iran was about to attack the U.S. because they had the capability to make nuclear weapons, but the Senate Intelligence Committee says they saw no evidence of any threat.
There was no imminent threat to the United States of America by the Iranians.
And I heard recently that the estimate as to when they would be capable of sending a nuke to the United States is like 9 years away.
That's why all of this is so confusing, because nothing makes any logical sense. And that's why I wanted to make this video. Because the truth is that all of this is very logical, because it has been planned for the last 30 years. And I'm going to show you the 4 different power players that all wanted this to happen and what their interests actually are. If we follow the money far enough, we'll come to a theory that connects all of this. And that theory has to do with something called the control grid and power over the flow of money. So with that said, let me explain who this benefits, how this affects investors, and what the heck is happening. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andre Ajik. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the geopolitical rabbit holes that keep me up at night. So let's talk about why this is happening beyond the official narrative that we're told about. There are 4 major theories that explain it. There's 4 interest groups, all with credible evidence. And let me just start with the elephant in the room, which is Israel. Okay, so why do people think Israel forced the U.S. to go to war? Evidence number 1 is a video of Marco Rubio explaining why this happened.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed.
So Marco told Congress, we knew there was going to be an Israeli action, so we struck preemptively. He's saying Israel was going to do this no matter what. And once Israel hit Iran, Iran was going to retaliate against the U.S. by attacking U.S. military bases. And because Israel made this inevitable choice, the US was forced into it as a preemptive action. Now, another piece of evidence is an incredible interview with a former CIA officer, John Kiriakou. I'll leave a link down below to the podcast, but John claims that Israel essentially gave the US an ultimatum. His words: Israel said to the US, bomb Iran's nuclear facilities or we will use our own weapons to do it.
The reason, though, I'm told, that Donald Trump decided to bomb Iran was that the Israelis said, for the first time, if you don't bomb Iran to take out these deep bunkers, we're going to use nuclear weapons. And they had never threatened that before. And so Trump said, bombing Iran might actually save us from the start of World War III if it keeps the Israelis from using nuclear weapons.
That's the whole reason behind Operation Midnight Hammer, the initial strikes against Iran, which was to prevent World War III or an all-out nuclear war from starting. Right? Now, Israel has never officially acknowledged having nuclear weapons, but a lot of experts believe they do, even though they've never said it. So if John Kiriakou's source is accurate, Israel threatened to use weapons it has never admitted to having, which forced the United States into a war to prevent a potentially much bigger one involving nuclear weapons from starting. That's a huge claim. It hasn't been independently verified, but it does have a lot of credible evidence. Now, even if we discount him and we don't believe him, the third piece of evidence comes from the source, from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been pushing for an attack and a regime change in Iran since the mid-1990s.
The deadline for attaining this goal is getting extremely close. And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems that they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks.
We're going to go ahead and show more of this clip. Please be patient. We'll get to the point after a couple of clips. After this one, we're going to show a clip of AOC talking about the other reason that we're in Iran. But let's go ahead and finish this clip.
Foremost sponsor of global terrorism could be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons. That would place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year.
So if you've been paying attention at all, this has been the project for 30 years. This was the goal, and it happened. So that's power player number one. Israel wanted Iran's regime gone, and they got it with American firepower, American service members, and American money. And in the grand context of power, who does this benefit? It benefits the military-industrial complex, which some people call the neocons. Right, that's power player number one. The second theory is even more interesting. But before we continue, this video is brought to you by Tello Mobile. If you've been paying 50, cancel nonsense. You bring your own phone, you keep your own phone number, and you build the plan exactly the way you want it. They even include free stuff that other carriers charge extra for, like Wi-Fi calling, international calls to over 60 countries, eSIM support, and international roaming. This was documented in the Don Road Doctrine, like the Monroe Doctrine, but Donald Trump's version. The way to disrupt China's economy and get leverage is, for example, cutting China off the cheap oil they were getting from Venezuela, and the cheap silver they were getting from Latin America, and now the cheap oil they were getting from Iran. This is where something called the Strait of Hormuz comes in. There's this body of water between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula.
We'll rejoin the video here in a second. Wanted to display this Google Gemini query I did just to understand where the oil is coming from going to China. So Russia, approximately 20%, and these are based on 2025 estimates. Saudi Arabia 17%, Iran 15%, Iraq 12%, Malaysia 9%, Brazil 6%, UAE 6%, and Venezuela is not listed here, but it was about 2 to 5% when I asked it earlier. Since the oil is cheap from Venezuela, not having that source does affect the economy in China. Back to Andre now.
Called the Strait of Hormuz. It's very narrow, but about a quarter of the world's supply of oil passes through this tiny little point. And as of right now, it's shut down. Traffic has dropped 70%. There's over 150 ships just sitting there waiting. And insurance companies have suspended their coverage, which is basically a financial kill switch. Because if you can't get insurance, they can't ship their oil to places like China. So as a result, oil has gone up in price. And analysts are saying if this close lasts more than a couple weeks, we could see $100 or higher for a barrel of oil. Gas prices at the pump are also projected to go up 10 to 30 cents a gallon in the short term. That's the optimistic scenario. Now hold on. How does this benefit the U.S.? This benefits the U.S. because this hurts Iran. What hurts Iran hurts China because China buys a lot of Iranian oil. So from a sovereign powers perspective, right? So from the perspective of the United States, this is a strategic win because it makes China more dependent on U.S. oil. And if the U.S. can control the supplies of oil around the world, that is leverage. Now obviously, U.S. oil companies will also benefit. ExxonMobil, Chevron, ConocoPhillips. Their costs will stay the same, but the price of what they're selling is going up. Every dollar increase in crude oil translates to higher profit margins for them, aka those companies make more money. But this also benefits the dollar, because oil is still priced in dollars. So when oil prices go up, global demand for dollars goes up with it. And we can even see that in the data when we look at the Dixie Index, which measures the strength of the dollar relative to other currencies. That is getting stronger. Some people argue this is a way of saving the global hegemon that is the dollar system. Now, if this theory sounds crazy to you, believe it or not, this was predicted on video by a Russian politician as early as 2013.
So what's their plan? They still need to occupy 7 more Arab countries, crush Syria, and destroy Iran with a military strike. America needs to weaken China. If Iran is struck, oil prices will soar to $200 per barrel. The Chinese economy won't be able to withstand that. And the European Union won't withstand it either. So, by striking Iran, America weakens both the EU and China.
So higher oil prices and flow controls benefits the dollar, the U.S. corporations, and hurts adversaries like China and the European Union. And that was planned a long time ago. So that is the second theory. The third theory is that this is all to benefit the financial industrial complex, which are the real powers behind the people who got the president elected. So who am I talking about specifically? This is the big money donors. This is a list of Trump's top 20 donors. There's $635 million in total. Look at this as a map of every interest we just talked about. For example, number 1, Timothy Mellon, old banking and transportation dynasty, financial industrial complex. Number 2, Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, XAI, His companies hold billions and billions in Pentagon contracts, and his AI company just entered a program to build autonomous drone swarms for the military. That's the technological industrial complex and the military industrial complex in one person. There's number 3, Miriam Adelson. She has spent decades as the single biggest pro-Israel donor in American politics. She's been pushing for a regime change in Iran. That's $105 million towards the policy we just watched happen. Right? Number 7, Ike Perlmutter, former chairman of Marvel, served on Trump's informal defense advisory council. There's number 9, Robert Bigelow, Bigelow Aerospace, Defense and Space. Right? These are military industrial complex adjacent donors. There's number 10, Kelsey Warren, runs Energy Transfer Partners, one of the biggest oil and gas pipeline companies in the country. Higher oil prices from a Hormuz shutdown go straight to his bottom line. That's the oil interest, right? Number 15, Howard Lutnick, indirect ties to Cantor Fitzgerald, has huge interests in Tether, and whose company allegedly bet against the tariff policy while advising the president on the same policies, right? He's now the Commerce Secretary. There's number 16, Paul Singer, runs one of the...
That's interesting how it seems Howard Lutnick bought the Secretary of Commerce cabinet position for $6.4 million. Only in America. Well, no, not only in America.
Most powerful hedge funds on earth. His fund's most recent public filings show hundreds of millions of dollars in defense and energy index funds, which all went up the moment the strikes started. So here we have tech, defense, right, oil, finance, Israel, every interest group that is represented here. This is their return on investment, and this is only what we know publicly. Now, some people also believe this has all been prearranged, right? Like the deal was made a while ago, and what we're watching on TV and social media is all just theater. Now, if you assume for a moment that this is true, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But if it's true, then why bomb a whole country? If this was pre-negotiated, why just not do it peacefully? And the answer, from the military-industrial complex perspective, is that this operation was a live product demonstration.
So, that sounds pretty gross. A live product demonstration for the defense contractors, and they killed probably somewhere around 100 little girls so far. Not to mention, I think the last count I heard was almost 1,000 people altogether for a commercial demonstration to get more sales.
What does that mean? It means every weapon system just got used, right? B-2 bombers, Tomahawk cruise missiles, F-22s, F-35s. This has all been shown on every news network and social media in the world. You could not buy this kind of advertising. Every country watching this is now thinking about what they need to buy, either to do what America just did or to defend against it. That is worth hundreds of billions of dollars in future sales and billions more in stock appreciation. Because we know war is good for business. So that's theory and power player number 3. Now, if you made it this far, congratulations, because this is the 4th theory, and it is by far the most interesting one. It's going to tie all of this together. This theory says the reason why all of this is happening is because of the technological industrial complex's digital control grid. So let me tell you something crazy that just happened. The US military used an AI called Claude, made by a company called Anthropic. It was used to help plan these strikes for target identification, battle simulations, and intelligence analysis.
Sources tell CBS News the U.S. military used Claude for its attack on Iran over the weekend. Now, the Pentagon's ongoing use of Anthropic's AI model comes despite a falling out with the company over its refusal to grant the military unrestricted access to the technology.
Which means we are now living in a time when AI helps plan a war. Like, just sit with that for a second. That is crazy. Here's where it gets crazier. Just hours after the strikes, Trump signed an executive order banning federal agencies from using Anthropic's technology. Why was it banned? It was banned because the CEO of Anthropic, Dario Amodei, publicly said no to the government. He said no to fully autonomous weapons and mass domestic surveillance. The U.S. responded by saying, all right, you are now a supply chain risk to national security. That's a label normally reserved for foreign companies, but this has never been used against a U.S. company before. And on the exact same day, OpenAI, which is Anthropic's biggest competitor, signed a deal with the Pentagon.
Now, hours after the Trump administration ditched Anthropic over the dispute, OpenAI swooped in and struck its own deal with the Pentagon.
So the message to every AI company in the world right now is that if you say yes to the military and yes to the U.S. government, you will get the contract. But if you say no, you will be treated like a foreign enemy. Hold on, it gets way crazier. When Iran retaliated, guess what they attacked? One of their targets was Amazon Web Services data centers in the UAE and Bahrain, not military bases. Iran attacked the cloud computing infrastructure.
AWS has confirmed objects struck the site. Sparks, fire. The UAE Fire Department cut the power to the entire building.
That is the first time in history that commercial data centers have been physically targeted. By the way, those are the servers that run huge parts of the internet like, banking data and host businesses. And these are now military targets. People are calling this the beginning of techno-feudal wars, where the military uses AI to plan the attack and the enemy retaliates by bombing the servers. Which means our digital and physical worlds are now colliding. So what happens next? Well, this needs to be a separate video, but I want to give credit to Catherine Austin Fitts. Who is that? She was the Assistant Secretary of Housing under George H.W. Bush. She managed hundreds of billions of dollars in government money. She ran a Wall Street investment bank, and she has a theory that connects all of these wars into one grand theory. This is something I've talked about in my last few videos, so I hope you've been subscribed, but here's the theory. She says what's being built right now is a global financial control grid. It has three parts to it. The first part is programmable money, aka money with rules. Money that knows where it can be spent, when it expires, who's spending it, and can be shut off remotely. The second part is the control grid, right? The digital identity system that is linked to that money. Digital IDs, right? Most likely using biometric data like fingerprints, retinal scans, things like that. And the third part is the physical infrastructure, things like data centers, cameras, satellites, fiber optic networks. Hold on, how does this all fit into Iran? Well, here's a fun fact. Iran's central bank is not part of the Western financial system. It sits outside this control grid. And Iran's oil going to China in non-dollar currencies is not good for that system because it's not controlled by the Western financial infrastructure. Iran is the last piece of this puzzle because it's what puts pressure and challenges the ultimate adversary in this tech race, which is China. How do we know this? We know this because in 2007, the former NATO Supreme Commander, General Wesley Clark, shortly after 9/11, was shown a memo at the Pentagon listing 7 countries to be taken down in 5 years. That list included Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. We have now been involved in all of them. Iran was the last one on that list.
We got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Okay, so then the question is, when does this control grid take effect? What now? Nobody knows. But there might be more regional wars and special operations. For example, Taiwan is of very specific interest, but that's another video for another time.
We're going to go ahead and go to the end of the clip. And here we go.
В облако обесценивают и начинают с нуля.
The US will not be paying anything back. It will just redistribute the debt throughout the world using these stablecoins and CBDCs by giving the powers of the banking system to the corporations, right? This is the legacy of the dollar. I don't think the dollar is going to go away quietly. That's its last frontier. In the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories on what you think is happening and how you're investing. If you want to see my portfolio, you can go to fundvest.com and sign up to track your own investments as well as mine. But as always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to see you back here next week. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Well, it's been nearly 1 week since the U.S. and Israel launched those attacks on Iran.
Trump has
Meantime, the newest
impulsively
jobs
went
numbers
in
are adding
on
to the economic
Venezuela.
uncertainty.
He
To discuss all this, we
impulsively
turn now
went
to
in
the
on
analysis.
Iran. There was no exit and no end game for either of these situations. It led.
Let's start this over. So this clip is AOC talking about what many of us know, and that is that we need to just get some distractions going to distract us away from distract us away from the Epstein files.
Trump has impulsively went in on Venezuela. He impulsively went in on Iran. There was no exit and no end game for either of these situations. It led to increased global instability everywhere he goes, and every time he's done that, it has been consistent with a spike or a revelation in what is happening with the Epstein files. I think that he feels existentially tied to it, and I actually think that it is one reason that he must be removed from office.
I hate reducing something of this level of import to he's really freaked out because he's mentioned in the Epstein files tens of thousands of times and feels like the walls are closing in. But that man is such a cornered rat.
I do think in every meeting, on every conversation and every major initiative, a big question is, how do we potentially keep Epstein out of the news cycle for another, whatever it is, another 34 months until the next election? Because when the onion gets peeled back, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Now, do you think he actually went to war to keep Epstein out of the news cycle? I don't know. That's a lot even for Trump, but I think it's a free gift with purchase here. My thesis all along has been the following. There are 2 or 3 very smart people in a room constantly querying every LLM, what can we do to keep Epstein out of the news? And ideas, policy programs, tweets on True Social, insults. I think they are monitoring how much Epstein is in the news, especially links to Trump. And then they are saying whenever.
So let's talk about the economic outlook now. Let's watch Aaron Dishner. Okay, here we go. TradFi is about to crash.
And fear because their currency is being devalued. Because, like it or hate it, the U.S.
Sorry about
I've been
that.
hinting at the fact that I think TradFi is due for a lot of pain over the last couple of months, to be honest, in the Better Traders Club.
So let's watch Aaron now talk about not just crypto and Bitcoin, but he's talking about TradFi about to crash. And it seems that, you know, the Iran war is one of the major headwinds, but there's some others.
Club server. And I've been talking about it more and more in these dedicated daily crypto market update videos. But again, like, I don't think you guys understand what the potential bearish market could be for the S&P and how that will negatively impact Bitcoin, crypto, and everything else. So I'm not trying to be, again, doom and papa, but I can't ignore the signs, and I really want to make a dedicated video that just explains what I'm seeing and how it can negatively affect crypto for the rest of this year. And again, if you didn't already know, this is a bottom year for Bitcoin. So all of you feeling really happy about Bitcoin having these little 5% moves, just pump the brakes and hear me out, okay? The first chart we need to look at is the US dollar index. I'm making this video primarily for people that are in crypto that might not understand what these charts are, which is totally fine, because when I got into crypto, I didn't know about any of this stuff. But over time, I realized the importance of these charts and how they definitely have a very strong bearing and weight on what happens with Bitcoin and then, thusly, crypto. So, what we're looking at is the dollar index, which is the Dixie. The Dixie is a great chart that helps us to understand the strength of the US dollar. And when we start to see a lot of strength growing for the Dixie, like we saw back over here in April, or rather during 2021, we saw the Dixie shoot up from about 89 to about 93, move back down, and then it really started to rocket up all the way up to 114. You're like, cool, man, that's a great chart. You don't understand. During this period, note the year, 2021, this is where we saw a lot of pain, and we saw our bear market summer back in 2021, and eventually BTC topped out in November 2021, and then we saw the Dixie continue to pump, conveniently topping out over here in September, where BTC finally bottomed out in November. But notice what happened over here in November. It's really wild. We saw that Dixie put in some bearish vibes, and it finally broke support in November, and it started to just fall lower and lower and lower, right? Chopsolidation for a long time. It was wild watching the Dixie going up higher and higher like a meme coin throughout 2021 and 2022. And during this time period, this is typically when a lot of other currencies experience a lot of stress and fear because their currency is being devalued. Because, like it or hate it, the US dollar is the primary currency that settles all trade. That and oil. More on that in a second. As we saw the Dixie shoot up to a crazy high degree, we know that other currencies absolutely got smashed during this time. Now, there will be periods where things aren't so bad, right? There will be periods where it's like, it's kind of okay. Actually, let me turn off the TBO. We don't need it. Look at what happened, for instance, to the euro, which when the Dixie bottomed out, the euro was at 123. And then it fell a little bit. It came back up, but eventually it lost 22% over that entire time. If we were to use JPY USD, the yen, during that time as well, we have to adjust our scale. But if we go back over here, we also know very clearly that it's not been a very nice time for the yen. The yen has lost a significant amount of value from January 2021 until that bottom in 2022. It lost 32% of its value. That's insane. Now, we know that the yen has also been dancing around a lot, and I struggle looking at that chart because this is the one I'm really looking at. And this is the one that makes the most sense to you if you're an American. And the reason why is that this is showing you your purchasing power. The fact that the yen used to be almost on par with the dollar, 102 yen for...
So we're going to end the video now after looking at a couple of charts. But watch the whole video, Andre's video as well as Aaron's video, and thank you for their professional and continuously good information they put out, as well as the other channel that we have on here. I can't remember the name of the channel, but the short with AOC. Thank you to all of them. At this point, though, we're going to look at the charts and then end the video in a couple of minutes. So here is the S&P 500, specifically the SPX. Oops, we lost it. Let's go it. There we go. So these are daily, or excuse me, hourly candles. We're looking back through February and into March, and it's looking ugly. We're all the way down here. After watching Aaron's video, it looks like it's going to be dropping maybe significantly lower. My position right now is I'm mostly out of stocks and I'm just in money market funds. I'm mostly out of Bitcoin and other cryptos. I still have my gold and silver. I'm not doing any buying right now at all, just keeping cash and real estate and gold and silver. Let's take a look at the next chart, which is BTC. TradingView always does this. And then I have to do this and then re-enter what I want. Okay, I didn't set this up right. Sorry about that, folks. BTC. Queen. There we go. So Aaron, in his video, and again I encourage you to watch the whole thing, he's really looking at the possibility that Bitcoin could even get down into the 40s. I think specifically he was saying all the way down to 38, somewhere in this area. So I'll probably be, as the price drops, I'm going to dollar cost average in, and then when it gets into the 30s, I'll probably deploy my last cash into whatever Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, maybe some Zcash, and anyway, we'll talk about that in another video, but main point is I'm mostly in cash right now, and I believe Warren Buffett's mostly in cash right now. He's been in cash for quite a while, so he missed out on some of the gains, but we'll see how that plays out. ANM, American Northwest Magazine. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching.